Welcome to one of the bookshelves in my bedroom. I did not set my 2025 reading goals until probably last week, and it is the third week of January. So with that being said, I came up with this one, and I'm probably already pushing myself to achieve it. It was already going to be pretty nearly impossible, but I'm going to go for it anyway. To give you a little bit of background, I've been collecting books for years, and downstairs on the lower level of the house are all of my bookshelves where my books are traditionally alphabetically shelved. In 2010, so 14 years ago, we moved, and all of my books that were alphabetically shelved went into boxes. They stayed in boxes until now, through 3 more moves and relocations. And now my basement is where all of those books that were alphabetically shelved now live. Because of all of this and most of my books being in boxes, I really slowed down on buying books because I always knew that we were sort of transitory and it didn't make sense to purchase a lot of books when everything was already in boxes that I owned. Fast forward to 2020 when I ended up in this house. I knew I was going to be staying, hopefully forever. And I started buying books again because half of my books were in storage in a storage facility. Some were here and started to go on the shelves alphabetically. I, for some reason, wanted to keep my recent purchases more at hand, and I started shelving my books by when I bought them and sort of not moving the new purchases into the general population. What has that done? Now I have 6 bookshelves in my bedroom, plus my living room bookshelves, plus more bookshelves in a hallway and a den, where everything has been stored chronologically. So when I was thinking about my 2025 reading goals, I thought, wouldn't it be great to, let's face it, I'm not going to do my entire TBR, that is unrealistic, in 2025. But maybe I can get through this shelf, which is the oldest books chronologically since I've lived in this house. Now, my goal for last year, 2024, was to read 52 books because I work a full-time job. And I hit that goal on October 31st, and I exceeded it by 10 books, so I finished reading 62 books in 2024. Now, there are 52 books on this shelf because it is double shelved. And so just reading this shelf alone would be my 2024 reading goal. I know that's not realistic, but it's because it's not going to take into account new releases, things for book clubs, etc. So I am really stretching myself, even though I told myself I wasn't going to set a really strong stretch goal for my reads for 2025. This is a really strong stretch goal for 2025. So with 52 books on this shelf, I would have to finish 1 book a week, every week in 2025 to get it done. But I'm already behind schedule because it's January 14th. So I would need to finish 3 books right now just to get caught up. I'm already behind schedule and it's January 14th. That's great for 2025. So taking into consideration that at some point over the year, not to put too much pressure on myself and try to do it now, I will need to catch up along the way. I'm going to try to stay on track from this point moving forward and finish one of these books every week. It's timely for me to start now because I was looking at January new releases, and actually there is a book on the shelf that is the next book in a series that I'm reading that had a new release this year, and that spurred me on to get started because I'm already 2 weeks behind. So walking through what's on the shelf, it is all mystery or thriller. So this is going back to my plans for 2025 to really stay in my comfort zone for reading and to cut out some of the genres that I felt were changing my focus and pulling me away from what I really enjoy reading. So part of this goal will hopefully get me back on track to find some enjoyment. Now, some of the ground rules for this, as I said, I need to read a book a week. At some point, I'm going to have to catch up and read at least 2 books for 2 weeks to stay on track. The other thing is I cannot read a series out of order, and there are some series books on this shelf, so that is going to complicate things because it could potentially make me read more than what is on this shelf. Now, I decided a little bit of an out for that, a loophole, is if I have the next book in the series shelved somewhere else chronologically, because I bought it after I bought the book that is on the shelf, not realizing that I was buying a book further into the series than where I was actually reading, I can switch them. So, for example, if you can see it, The Cozy, Joanne Fluke's Raspberry Danish Murder, which is, I think, pretty far along in the series. So if I go into the rest of my shelves and I can find the next in the series that I'm reading or needs to be read to catch me up to Raspberry Danish Murder, I can switch that book for Raspberry Danish Murder and reshelve this one where that one is and read that one. So that's my first loophole to help me along and to not make it even more unattainable than it already is. But the book I'm going to start with is this one. So this week I'll be reading Jeffrey Seeger, The Assassins of Athens. This is the second in the Andreas Caldas mysteries set in Greece. I think the first one was Murder in Mykonos. And so we'll go on from there. All right, so this week we'll be reading Assassins of Athens, and I'll do periodic updates of how it's going. It is many days later. I even further behind schedule with this challenge. So I had planned on doing an update when I got about 100 pages into this. I am now 174 pages into it. This was honestly a tough one to start this challenge with. I think at best, this will be 3 stars, probably closer to 2.5 in the last 100 pages I have or so of it. So this is the second book in the series. The first book in the series was Murder in Mykonos, which I gave 3.5 stars to when I read it. Generally, I will not continue on with the series if I give it anything lower than a 3. I gave this a 3.5, the first book 3.5, so I'm continuing on with the second. We are continuing with our police. His title is police chief. It's not what we would think of in the United States as a police chief. He is the chief of a department, basically a division, and more like I think comparable to a chief inspector in the UK. So he is Chief Inspector Caldas, and he is back working in Athens. In the first book, he had sort of been banished to Mykonos because of him being kind of incorruptible and coming up against some higher-ups in the Greek police who were corruptible, and they viewed him as a potential threat to what they were doing, basically. So he's sort of surmounted these obstacles, and he's back in Athens, leading his squad. And they're called in when the body of a very wealthy, influential businessman is found he's been tortured and he's been killed. And over the course of the investigation, Caldas and his team discover that someone is targeting the families of wealthy Greeks who are Greek by descent but have left the country and been living somewhere else, and then have come back to Greece to pick up sort of where they left off, and are inserting themselves into society because they are wealthy. And whoever is doing this views them as outsiders and thinks that they shouldn't be there. So very supremacist focused sort of narrative. And also over the course of the investigation, Caldis discovers that this is not the first murder that has taken place. This has happened to other people, and the families have fled Greece. So he needs to discover who is doing this. Of course, along the way, he meets a woman. There's, I wouldn't call it romance, but there is interaction between them. Now, there were some things about this one that immediately reminded me of part of the reason why I gave the first book in the series a 3.5 stars. And unless something happens and this in the last 100 pages becomes like this amazing, oh my God, I didn't see that coming, this was so good, etc., it's going to be really hard for me to continue on with this series. It's a little too, I guess. So Caldis is irresistible to women. It's got that whole I'm God's gift kind of a thing going on, and he's grumpy to his team, but they love him anyway, and he makes bad decisions. He makes poor choices and bad decisions, but it's okay to make bad decisions as long as you're not corrupt. I don't know. It's just rubbing me the wrong way. So yeah, this was a hard one to start the challenge with because I was hoping that it was a short book and it would go really, really fast and I would start to catch up to meet this goal to clear off that shelf, all 52 books. And it's been 10 days and I still have 100 pages to go. So yeah, this is a tough one, but I'll keep plugging away at it. There's nothing that has made it a DNF yet. It's just kind of icky. All right, update time. Change of scenery. I'm in Arizona at the Creepy Book Club retreat. So I'm in my hotel room in Scottsdale at the Scott. It's beautiful. And I finished Assassins of Athens, first book in the Top Shelf Challenge for me. This one is Holding On by a Thread series. I ended up giving it a 3. I have not looked to see if I have any other books on the shelf in the series. I can do that right now. All right, I have confirmed. I do not own any more of this series. So since it's such a low ranked series for me, but it's right at the cutoff for not continuing with it, if I do decide to pick up the next one in the series, I will get it from the library. I definitely could have dealt with some better editing, and it has that irresistible male outsider cop who has issues, but everybody likes him and all the women fall for him, and it's just unrealistic. So it was a little too political for me as well. Just complex political systems that turned into being not really political systems, and I think it was it just tried to be more than it was. So the first book was not like that. It was set on Mykonos. It was more fighting a serial killer and just the police procedural elements of that. There was a ticking clock element to it as well that pushed it into thriller territory. This tried to be in thriller territory, but it was ultimately more of a police procedural, which is fine, which I like, but I just don't know what line Seeger is straddling if he's trying to be a thriller writer, and get that sort of male-dominated virulent character thing going. I don't know. Anyway, like I said, I will, if I pick up the next, it will be from the library. I'm not going to buy any more of them. So that took incredibly more time than I thought it was going to. I finished this book on January 29th. So much for finishing one a week. That did not happen. So it's time to take the next book off the shelf. I'm thinking that I will do a monthly segment for this challenge to go through the books that I finish each month that are part of this challenge. So this may be where I end this video, just talking about what the next book is, because I still have to finish 4 books for the retreat that I'm at. And so I will desperately be reading today and tomorrow to get that done. So just taking the books in the order that they come off of the shelf, which is how I said I was going to approach this challenge. We have this Joanne Fluke book, which is way down in her series. So taking the book off the shelf, placing it to the side, and finding, I've actually never started this series and own several of them. So I found where the first book in the series is on my shelf, and I will be switching places with them eventually. I sort of have it set off to the side for now as a reminder that this was one of the books for the challenge. But I have here the first book in the Hannah Swensen series, Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder. Now this may be the book that I read on the plane on the way home, since it's nice and compact. I'm not flying home until February, and I doubt I will even crack this until then. So I will end the video here. Wish me luck. I still have 51 books to read, and we're entering February. So this should be interesting. I will say that January is off to just an amazing start, and I've been finishing a book about every 4 days. I've finished 8 books in January so far, and because I'm here at the retreat and I have a lot of reading time, I do expect to finish these 4 books for the retreat. So yeah, January is just going really, really well, which is giving me high hopes that I will be able to continue this challenge and be somewhat successful at it, even if I don't get it completely done. So thanks for watching and joining in the challenge. I'd love to know if you have a similar challenge going on. Please leave it in the comments below, and tell your pets I said hi, and I'll see you next time.